Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues, and we continue our look at candidates that are going to come up and be available for your vote or non-vote in the runoff election. Yes,
the state runoff election for the State School Superintendent on the Democratic side is occupied by Dr. Frida Deskin, whom you heard from last week, and today you'll hear from Dr. John Cox, her opponent. He was the leading vote getter in the primary election, and we're going to have him on here in a few minutes, and he's going to tell us what he plans to do if elected and how he's going to get it done.
Dr. John Cox, today's guest on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
I've been fortunate enough to premiere every film that I've produced at Sundance. Seeing your film on the big screen for the first time in front of an audience at the Sundance Film Festival is unmatched. I'm Chad Burris. I'm an attorney, film producer, film financier, economic development financier, and I'm Chickasaw. Nobody can argue that modern day media, cinema, has perpetuated this myth, this idea of the Indian and what that is. And just the idea that, all Indians look one way or all Indians act one way is a terrible injustice. Being able to have filmmakers tell stories that are representative of some element of his surroundings, his upbringing, what they know, what they see through their own eyes, that other people get a chance to bear witness to around the world. I think that's amazing. For me personally, being an Indian today means being responsible, honest, progressive, and giving that back to the community.
Learn more about today's Chickasaws at profilesofenation.com.
It's a North American energy revolution. We're the fastest growing source of new oil and natural gas supplies in the world.
The shift to North American energy will create approximately 3 million jobs.
All that money we've been sending overseas, $400 billion a year. Imagine that staying in our economy. It's a game changer.
Real energy independence starts now, and it starts with Oklahoma.
Welcome back to the set of Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're very pleased to have all the way from Peggs, Oklahoma, which I understand is 10 miles north of Tahlequah, Dr. John Cox. John led the Democratic field in the primary election for State School Superintendent, and he, of course, is in a runoff in that very election coming up here the last of August. John did his undergraduate work at the Northeastern State University in Tahlequah, did his master's degree work at the same institution, Northeastern State. By the way, he also has served as an adjunct professor there at Northeastern. He did his PhD work at Oklahoma State University. He has been in education 20 years, been active as 20 years. He's been a superintendent, been an educator in almost all areas. He is as I indicated in the opening, he's the highest vote getter in the Democratic primary election, and congratulations on that.
Thank
and
you.
Welcome. We're
Thank
pleased you'd come all this way to do our show. We're grateful.
Yeah, I am too. Thank you so much.
Dr. Cox, when you decided to get in this race, it was kind of under this broad canopy of people upset with the incumbent. Usually when there's an incumbent running for statewide office, it's hard to draw good funded candidates across the board. But there were 6 people that were willing to take on the incumbent. Now, as it's shaken out, the incumbent's not even in the race anymore. Why was there so much interest, in your opinion, on running statewide for this seat at this particular time?
Well, I think in my case, I just had enough. And I could see that all across Oklahoma with the other superintendents that I engage with. And so at that point, when I could see the looks on teachers' faces and all the reforms that have come in that have really put a burden on them, I think that's what empowered all of us to get out there and fight. And really, this is my way to try to replace the current school superintendent and take care of our public schools again.
Now, there's an annual gripe from educators that there's just not enough money coming out of the legislature. Is that your belief, and what do you intend to do about it if so?
Well, I can see that, and I see that in my own budget. And as I talk to superintendents, well, all across the state, we're all having the same concerns. And really, superintendents, we're our own worst enemy, because every time we take a cut, we actually fix it and we work our budget, and so they think we can keep taking cuts. And we're really at a point in time now where we're bare-boned, and there's no more room for cuts. So yes, we really need to get back to where we had that 2009 budget, pre-2009, where we actually decreased $200 million, and we ranked #1 in the nation in cuts. And I really want to put the focus back on what can we do for our public schools, and really valuing what we have in public schools.
In the city limits of Oklahoma City, we have 24 school districts that serve kids that live inside the city limits. Is that too many?
No, and actually, I would say it's not enough, because as you see, like in Edmond's case over here, that they've just built a brand new elementary, and that's because of growth. And also what it does is, the smaller the schools you have, the more individual attention you can give to students. And so I think the more schools that you can have to provide that individual attention is powerful. And so I would actually say we need more schools broken down, and it helps on so many different avenues, even with behavior.
I'm not talking about schools, I'm talking about districts.
Well, and really it's sort of semantics.
Okay.
Because as you go out through rural Oklahoma, we have districts, but some of us are single-site schools. So the school is the district itself. And so I just think that, and you know, you may be talking a little bit about bureaucracy and administration, but I really believe that the more districts you have, the more it empowers people within that community to have a say-so.
So you want local decisions?
Oh, absolutely. I think local control, and I actually see it more as we've been on the campaign trail, because all throughout Oklahoma it's so distinct to what we have, and in all areas there's different needs from our districts. And one thing that I'm really trying to work hard in talking about is workforce development. And in all areas of our state, there are so many different types of business and so many different needs. And so if I can work hard to have partnerships between businesses and our technology centers and schools, and really have the same focus and same energy, I think that that's powerful for the student coming out of high school. So local control is extremely important to me.
We did the unthinkable and looked at your website and tried to isolate some of the issues that you in fact list on your website, hoping that this may give you an opportunity to expand on some of these concepts that you've put in front of the voters. One thing that caught my eye was a phrase called high stakes testing.
Yes.
What do you mean by high stakes testing?
Well, it seems now, and what's really has hurt us the last 3 years, is that we put total focus on a test. And really now we view a student as a test score. And so high stakes testing is simply, if you don't pass that test in that moment of time, there's going to be a penalty for it. And I want to get away from that and really go back and looking at individual students and looking at their needs instead of a test score. And so I'm on a mission to say we need to do away with high stakes testing. We need to really go back, and we can use testing as a part of the overall picture, but it shouldn't be the focus. And it should be, you should look at the child the entire year and see what you can do. But beyond that, and I just spoke about workforce development, we have what you call end of instruction test. And so if a student makes an A all year in biology and doesn't pass that end of instruction, they don't get credit for that. And I really believe that if a student spends a full year and makes an A, they should get credit regardless of a test score. And really what it comes down on to is we don't trust teachers to do their job. And I want to really get back to trusting their expertise and trusting that they know what to do in that classroom.
Well, there just seems to be a sense, though, that teachers push a kid on to the next grade whether he's ready or not.
Yeah, and I think that is really a fallacy. And I think there are some cases where we have to look at, do you keep them at the same age level because of intellectual capability? and what is the best for the child at that time. And that's really where local control comes into place, because with the third grade reading scenario that we've just had, you have, if you don't pass it, you have to stay back. But fortunately, we've overturned that for 2 years. And that's really a good example of where we can't have a cookie cutter approach to what we're doing with a child. I really believe that the teacher and the parent and the principal, they're the closest to the situation. They should be able to sit down at a table like what we are and discuss, what's the possibility if you hold a child back? Are they going to drop out someday, or is this going to be the best thing for that child? And I want to keep that power within the local school district. So, you can talk about accountability, but we are accountable. Teachers get into the business because they love children and they want to be there and they want to make a difference. And so they're accountable to themselves before they ever enter the profession. But you're always going to have those outliers. You're always going to have that 3 to 5% in any profession that, are not there for the right reasons. And so,
how common is it, or how prevalent, I should say, is it for kids to do all right in the classroom work and then freeze up on the test, and the saying is they're just not good test takers? Is that an excuse? Is that reality? What is that?
I think it's reality, and it's really the type of person that they are, the type of personality. And for instance, in my case, I had a student right before the third grade reading test in my office crying because he did not want to go down there and take the test. He absolutely thought he was going to fail the test, and a really good student. There wasn't any reason why he should be concerned about that. But that's just my situation. But as I travel the state, I hear of 8-year-olds taking anxiety medicine, throwing up all night. I read some transcripts from third grade students from Sand Springs School, and they had nightmares the night before. Their parents were stressed out. And so, I just think we're doing kids wrong. I think we're taking away the joy of learning and the love of learning from them. And we're supposed to be developing lifelong learners, and we're taking that away from our children.
Dr. John Cox is running for State School Superintendent. We'll have one more segment with Dr. Cox when we get back.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the Set of the Verdict. We are visiting with Dr. John Cox, who's a Democratic candidate for State School Superintendent.
Dr. Cox, I noticed with some interest a phrase used on your website. It's called the state politics of interference.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, that is actually a blog that I responded to from the Oklahoma voters. And really it just means what do I think about our reforms coming in from out of state and from other entities that are coming in to kind of oppress what we're doing in public education. And that's one of the reasons why I got into this race because I just felt like a lot of the reforms that we were having weren't doing any good to help student performance and improve student performance. And so, you know, really the only one that I do somewhat agree with is our teacher evaluation system and the qualitative portion, but now we've gotten into it where they're actually putting test scores on a teacher's evaluation. And my belief is in so many ways that's wrong, because as teachers we have no control over the students that we have. We have no control over how they will do on a test because they may refuse to answer the questions. And so we're really putting a teacher's employment and life at stake based upon a student test score. And really teachers get into the business to help the most at risk and really make a difference in their lives. And now what they're going to be doing, if this has to do with them keeping their employment, they're going to be looking for the better students, the ones who can test better. And that's just not what a teacher is in it for. They're in it to help every child. And so the interference of federal reforms coming into our state from the Florida initiatives that we've implemented, including the A through F and this third grade reading that we talked about earlier, it's just getting really in the way of teaching a student and teaching an individual to become what they want to be.
Two largest districts in the state have over half the students speaking Spanish in the home. Now rural districts are dealing with a large influx of Hispanic people moving into their communities. How do you deal with that from an educational standpoint? And is there anything a state superintendent can do with that challenge?
I believe, and it is very difficult, but we have to provide the resources to be able to help those students that are coming in. And what we do with the Spanish-speaking students that we have is that we encourage them to continue because we see that as something in their life someday that could be valuable as employment for them, being as interpreters. And so we encourage them to continue learning their language. But it's just really tough the way we have it right now because we look at everybody as exactly the same. So we can't look at this population as individuals like we do. So I am really promoting going into 6th and 7th grade and to looking at doing interest inventories and looking to see what students really, what area they want to go into. And by 9th grade, if they love auto mechanics and they want to be that the rest of their life, why not train them during high school to really be the best auto mechanic they can be? And then when they get out of high school, they have a skill in hand. And so that kind of goes away with what we talked on, doing away with end of instruction tests, because we need flexibility to look at every career that a student would want to be and promote that. Because I really believe that's what we're in it for. They're our customers. They're what we're here for. That's why we have a job, and we need to figure out what we can do for them.
Should being bilingual be a significant plus for an incoming teacher, and should that result in perhaps a pay enhancement if they can speak both Spanish and English in a district where that is likely to be needed?
I think it's a definite advantage, and to have a dual language, that's just pretty powerful, I would think. That's the problem that we're having now. We have so many students, an influx of students, that we don't have enough teachers who do have dual languages. So that is a major concern, and really that becomes a local control issue because it's pretty much isolated to different pockets of the state. And so as state superintendent, if I can get out there and offer any services that we have to help them, that's what we need to be there for.
We have college educators on our show from time to time, and there's a frustration that so many high school graduates need remedial education when they leave the 12th grade. Whose fault is that, if you can lay the blame on any one category?
What I see is that right now, with the end of instruction testing and trying to make our high school diploma more meaningful, that we have forgotten that a lot of these students, as they graduate high school, that at the end they raise their hands up and go, what now? So typically they follow their friends to college. And so we have about 23 to 25% that actually finish college on the average each year. And so that leaves that other 75%, 3/4 of our students out there who are going and looking for something that they can have in their hand. And so the remediation process itself, I think, is factored into where students following their friends to college. And I think we can work on that and really help those students by giving them a skill And I keep saying that over and over, but our tech centers and partnerships with our high schools and businesses can really promote what our students can do. And they can go out and make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year after high school if we can train them and get them certified as juniors and seniors leaving our schools. And then they're not going to go to college and need remediation. They're going to go into the work field they want to.
We beat ourselves up a lot in this state about public education. What are we doing right? What do we need to build on?
As I cross the state, I hear all kinds of stories, success stories, and we are doing a great job. What's getting in the way is the testing, but I guess that's part of why I'm running too, is that I've just been frustrated that we've been beat up for 3 years now and told that we're bad, and really, I believe the agenda is to come in and say our public schools are bad, and that way they can come in and save us with curriculum, with testing, with remediation programs, and then we're spending millions of our dollars on those instead of really focusing those resources back and hiring more teachers and reducing class size. So that's an area that I'm really trying to get out there and talk about, because we have to refocus what we're doing. I need for teachers to know that we value and support them, and that is an honorable profession. But we can't do that if we just keep beating them over the head and saying that we're no good. And so my job as state superintendent is really to be an advocate and really get out there and promote, like what I'm doing here today, and say our public schools are doing a great job. We're meeting the needs of our children, and and in my life I always believe you have to improve. You always look to improve in all areas, and public schools do need to look to improve and continue that. But we are doing great jobs across the state, because you can go into our major universities and see our students from Class A and Class B schools just excelling through there. So yes, we're doing a great job, and it's time. It is actually time we get out there and start saying it.
In the recent primary elections, the phrase Common Core came up all the time, everybody running away from it, trying to say, I don't like it. Well, I like it less than you like it. And Common Core was a stigma. What do you think about Common Core and what we have done about it?
Okay. Well, from the very beginning, I didn't support Common Core. I am really excited that it was overturned, because that gives me an opportunity as a superintendent, state superintendent, and gives the teachers across the state to be able to come in and help me rebuild what we have, and actually have something that we can have in our hand and know that is ours. And from a leadership position from state superintendent, I have so many good friends, superintendent friends, who love Common Core, and then I have others on the very other end who say it's just really getting in the way of what we're doing. If I had them sitting here with us today, I would never get them to agree. And so as a leader, you really have to come back in and say, well, what can we do? Okay. And to rebuild that is where I want to head.
Less than a minute to go, but I want to give you a chance to look in the camera if you'd like. These are your potential constituents. Why should they vote for you on the upcoming election?
Well, I'm so pleased to be here today and represent our public schools. And I believe the reason that you should get out and work hard for our public schools and for me to be in the state superintendent's position is because I live it every day. And that I'm the only person in the race right now that is a certified school superintendent, and that I've been trained to do this job, and I care about what our kids need and what our individuals need. So I just want to say thank you for the hard work out there, and we just need to keep working to support our public schools.
All right, he is Dr. John Cox, and the election is August 25th.
Thank you.
Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
The human body, an amazing machine. What we're capable of is astonishing. If we look to what makes us human, we find that life is more than a heartbeat, and hope is more than an idea. That knowledge moves us forward, and our community keeps us together. OU Medicine is at its heart, keeping Oklahoma alive and well.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, Each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
We are a very conservative family, and we believe in old-fashioned family values. We have a loving home there, and we love kids, and we have 5, 6 of our own. And but I had no idea we were going to go into adoption, but it's been very gratifying.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and we're wrapping up a show with Dr. John Cox, who's a Democratic candidate for State Superintendent.
Yeah, really nice of Dr. Cox to come all the way from the northeastern part of the state down here to do our show. We appreciate it. I hope that you guys got a better chance to meet him and understand what he's doing and why he's doing it. And this will give you a good point of comparison when you enter the voting booth about whom it is you'll select.
There's just a lot of controversy about this position, that didn't exist prior to 3 years ago, and it gets back to, do we have standards, do we not? Do we push our kids harder, do we not? Do we give them a test in the 3rd grade that determines whether or not they can get to the 4th grade? And all of that's, in a sense and removed does seem a little bit harsh, but it just seems like you're also dealing with how do we provide a state education in an urban and a rural, in big schools and small schools. It's not an easy job.
No.
I'm grateful we have such distinguished people willing to run. Website information about this race at okeducation.us, okeducation.us. And of course, we have a website. Would love for you to go to that website and tell us about a guest you'd like to see or a topic you'd like to see discussed on a future edition of The Verdict. That website is theverdict.tv. We'll see you next week.